Welcome to Green Cove Springs, where history meets the present and looks forward to the future. The area that would become Green Cove Springs has a unique history. No other place in Florida has had an uninterrupted run of 250 years, surviving the Civil War, 3 Seminole Wars, and under the rules of both Charles II of Spain and King George III of Britain. Beginning as a lumber town of White Sulphur Springs, the town was renamed Green Cove Springs in 1866. In 1871, Green Cove Springs was selected as the new county seat, and on November 2, 1874, it officially became an incorporated city. The city's name originates from 3 physical characteristics. Green refers to perennial green vegetation characterized by its treescape and foliage. Cove refers to a bend in the St. Johns River, creating a safe area for mooring of boats during inclement weather periods. Springs refers to the natural spring, one of 600 in Florida, originating from the Floridan Aquifer.
Green Cove was sort of out in the middle of nowhere when Florida, or I should say when the Spanish territory known as East Florida was purchased by the United States in 1821. This place really had several names, one of which was White Sulphur Springs, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, the town got its beginnings when timber cutters from the New England area were down here looking for live oak trees to send back to New England as part of the shipbuilding process. And then down through the years, the spring was always sort of the common element of this place called White Sulphur Springs. And then about, it was shortly after the Civil War that the place name changed from White Sulphur Springs to Green Cove Springs. And a lot of people don't realize it, but that name was actually given by 2 people, a brother and a sister, Sarah Palmer and Darius Ferris. You've probably heard of Ferris Street and Palmer Street here in Green Cove. They were entrepreneurs. They were developing a little village called Mayport in those days, and they came down here and bought 840 acres, and they started selling property here, and that's how Green Cove sort of got its start.
Nestled along the St. Johns River, the city quickly became a popular destination for those seeking the healing powers of its natural spring. Early settlers were drawn to the area by the promise of health and prosperity. The spring, known for its mineral-rich waters, became a central hub for the community, giving the city its name and fostering growth.
We have to recognize that we are, right here, one of the higher points in Clay County. And in some respects, we're rather high when it comes to Florida. So first of all, it's high ground, fresh water, mild climate, hunt, fish, forage. So if we go back 10,000 years to the Timucuan people, and we look at who came here in that day and time to hunt, to fish, to forage, that fresh water, mild climate, you can build your shelter, you can take care of yourself, you can survive quite well.
During the late 1800s, the city experienced great prosperity as evidenced by the large number and quality of hotels constructed near the spring and surrounding area.
After Palmer and Ferris started selling property here, and you had businesses started being built, homes built and so forth, you had people moving into the area. And as a result of that, it was just the normal development of business activities. And anywhere there's money to be made, you're going to have people that will invest. And after the Civil War, a number of investors from the north came here, bought property, and started to either selling property or in this case building hotels and so forth. And of course, with the St. Johns River right here at our doorstep, you had a lot of steamboat traffic up and down the river. So it was very easy to get to Green Cove Springs on one of the many river or ocean going vessels that plowed up and down the St. Johns River every day. And as a result of that, these investors saw the opportunity maybe to come in here and build some hotels, and they did. During the, I want to say at the turn of the century of 1900, we have cataloged 17 different hotels, cottages, or boarding houses that were here in Green Cove Springs. The largest of which was the Clarendon Hotel that was built 1870, 1871, right across, well, where the City Hall is now. And it featured 200 rooms with hot and cold running water, and they had a dynamo to generate direct electric current, and they had electric lights, if you will, in that hotel starting in about 1874. And of course, it was in business for about 30 years, as I recall. It burned in 1900.
Hotel era was probably has been mislabeled because I think it should have been called the destination era. It was a hotel area, and there was the Clarendon Hotel, was the one that was where City Hall is today. Now there's St. Elmo, was walking distance to the spring, the Riverside, the Union, the Mohawk, and so on. The most notable one was the actual destination of Magnolia, or sometimes referred to as Magnolia Springs. It was a destination place. It was the absolute first resort in the state of Florida. And it was modeled after stuff that was built up in New England area by very high finance folks. So we were a destination. Magnolia Hotel actually had a 9-course golf course there.
Because of the city's prominence, it earned recognition as the Saratoga of the South, the Parlor City, and watering hole for the rich.
Saratoga of the South is probably one of our notable marketing things. In marketing, people want to relate with something, and people up north had a hard time relating with Florida. They just didn't get it. They couldn't get their head around it. But people in New York City knew that they could get on a vessel on a Friday afternoon, and they could go up the Hudson, they could get in a hotel, they could put their hair down, they can bet on the ponies, and they could spend the weekend, and Sunday evening they can get on a vessel and come back to New York City, and they can go down to a place called Wall Street and make some money, and then Friday afternoon they could get on a boat and they could go upriver to Saratoga Springs, and they could bet on the ponies, and they could put their hair down, and they could do what they want, and then they could come back to New York City and they could repeat it. So as people realized what they could do off the Hudson, all we had to do is say Green Cove Springs is Saratoga of the South.
Tourists and visitors journeyed along the St. Johns River from Jacksonville by riverboats bearing names like the Florence, the Magnolia, the Manatee, and the May Garner.
The absolute most noted of all would have been the May Garner. And the May Garner was christened by the captain's daughter, and they had a place right there off of right off the river. And the most noted one that came, and all the way into the end of the next century, the May Garner kept on coming here. It was, quote, the Green Cove boat.
In 1883, the Ladies Village Improvement Association of Green Cove Springs incorporated to promote beautification efforts within the city, and it later evolved into becoming the first federated women's club of Florida. The Village Improvement Association still exists and operates from the building dedicated in 1915.
I'm Larry Ann Stutz, and I've lived in Green Cove Springs for about 35 years, and I am currently the president of the VIA. It's actually the Village Improvement Association. It's the oldest women's club in Florida, and we're very proud of that. Well, the oldest minutes we have for meetings of the VIA would have been in April of 1888. Well, the mission was always just to started off just to make the town better, just to make the town prettier, and to then get more involved. They gradually we were responsible for starting the first kindergarten in this area, and then also the first library, even in Clay County, started right here. And that was from the women in the Village Improvement Association, because that's after they got everything cleaned up and pretty like they wanted it, then they moved on to more service projects. And they actually funded a lot of it back then by having tea parties. They would have big galas and stuff with teas and serving tea parties. And I just think it's neat that we still do a lot of that today. Not that they're fundraisers for us, but we do them because it's a historical thing to do. Back then, that was what you did in order to raise money.
The hotel era rapidly declined as railroads took tourists beyond Green Cove Springs to Flagler's Jewels in St. Augustine, Miami, and Tampa. The hotels, mostly wooden structures, were no longer so attractive as they deteriorated or burned. A series of cold winters, particularly 1895, didn't help. And if there was any hope in a revival, World War I put an end to any future festivities. By 1916, there were a few hotels left in the whole country. By the Great Depression, even these struggled.
All these were wooden hotels, and the Clarendon's a good example of what happens when you have a fire. It's completely destroyed, and down through the years with the reduced need for hotels, they became dilapidated, needing repair and so forth, and they almost disappear by 1930, 1940, if you will. And once again, that hotel era came and went. Not only here, but in other places as well. Now remember also, our chief competitor over on the East Coast here is St. Augustine, and you had a guy named Flagler that comes through, and he's going to build another railroad down the East Coast along the beach area, and he does push it all the way out to Key West.
The decline was mainly because people wanted something more. We were a destination, but there was something more upriver down south.
Today, the River Park Inn Bed and Breakfast is the last remaining connection to the hotel era. The late 1800s also saw the birth of Augusta Fells Savage. Augusta was an American sculptor associated with the Harlem Renaissance, a pivotal cultural movement that celebrated African American art and literature. Despite facing racism, Savage fought to secure a place for African American women in the art world. In honor of Augusta Savage's legacy, the city established the Augusta Savage Museum and Mentoring Center on the site of the old Dunbar High School library in 2021. It is now the creative heart of Green Cove Springs, with classes ranging from art and dance to reading and math tutoring.
We have several different ways that we try to enhance and support arts. Green Cove Springs, thanks to Augusta Savage and her accomplishments as a world-famous sculpture artist, has kind of really been the torch that has inspired so much training in the arts and our mentoring centers that we already discussed. That was a challenging thing for us to find the money to do, to rehabilitate and build that place and find the purpose for what it was going to be. And there was a lot of things the community wanted it to be, from whether it's the dance instruction, the museum, the mentoring, and it's exceeded my expectations. So I'm really glad that we invested in that. A lot of young kids go through and they get to appreciate and get quality instruction, whether it's in the art, the dancing, the history, finance. They can learn a lot of different things.
As the years passed, Green Cove Springs evolved, embracing new industries and technologies. The arrival of the railroad and the growth of local businesses transformed our small city into a thriving community.
Well, people had already realized they can move farther. They could get into the interior. Now the thing is, they want to do it faster. Henry Flagler came here and honeymooned with one of his wives. But he had left St. James Hotel earlier. He came to Green Cove. Now this is Standard Oil, Henry Flagler, a board member that's taking a leave of absence to go look at this newfound territory, a new area. And he just simply says, it moves too slow. He got on a vessel, went right across to Hallows Cove or down to Cooley's Cove or maybe down in Piccolata. Where he went, I don't really specifically recall, but he got on a narrow gauge rail and he went over to St. Augustine. And as Florida history tells us, from that point, Florida history changed.
Green Cove Springs played its part in significant historical events. Our city had the first trolley system in the state, providing transportation for commodities and also residents and visitors with their luggage from the riverbank piers to the various lodging accommodations in the city.
It wasn't really a trolley system to speak of. Only half of it was, because they had laid rails from the pier at the foot of Walnut Street at the river's edge, and it came all the way up to the Central Business District just a block from here, and that's where it terminated. But remember, you had people that were coming to Green Cove, and they would get off at the train, and then they were expected to walk or carry their bags this far? No. So what happens is you had several entrepreneurs that would that established a wagon and pickup system to where they would take you from the railroad on a wagon, and they had it rigged up with a surrey and a top and all that, and take you right down to the hotel.
The trolley system was probably the greatest hosting thing. Perhaps many of us, my wife and I being amongst the group, do not need a concierge at a hotel. But I know the few times that we've traveled to upscale places, a concierge is very nice to have. And you want to have your things taken care of at your wishes. So when B.T. Barnum came through here, of Barnum Bailey Circus, when B.T. Barnum came through here and saw just how things were handled, from the time you got off the vessel, somebody was there to accommodate you. If you wanted to go from one place to another, and it was more than a short walk, there were accommodations. That also provided opportunity for local folks to set a good benchmark for the service industry. So that put us in the category of being a parlor city of the South, or as B.T. Barnum would say sometimes, as I understand it came from B.T. Barnum, the watering hole for the wealthy.
During World War II, the city became home to a naval air station, which brought new opportunities and challenges. Benjamin Lee Field was a naval air training field designed to train pilots for landing operations on aircraft carriers during World War II. The facility was later renamed Naval Air Station Green Cove Springs and later redesignated as a Naval Auxiliary Station associated with the Naval Air Station Jacksonville Complex. During this period, the government expanded the complex with construction of 13 concrete piers, serving as the berthing place for over 600 ships placed in reserve status and referred to as the world's largest mothball fleet.
The mothball fleet was the largest mothball fleet in the country. The Navy brought 734 ships into Green Cove Springs. Some say that it was a scourge, because the city did not have any idea the Navy was going to come here. From September of 1945 and December of 1945, the Navy brought in 300 plus warships, still fully manned, and most of the destroyer escorts all carried at least 250 men. So you can do the math. By the end of December of 1945, Green Cove Springs became one of the most populated cities in the state of Florida. When those ships, by the end of December, they had another 60,000 sailors living in Green Cove. The USS Harmon was the first ship in the United States to be named after an African American. As far as the destroyer escorts now, there's only two left now. One is the USS Slater, that's in Albany, New York, and the other is the USS Stewart, it's in Sewell Park, Texas. That was the last of the DEs. LST-325, it is still operational, and it's in Jeffersonville, Indiana. It runs cruises up the Ohio to New York or down the Mississippi to New Orleans. They do this several times a year, but it's still an active ship, and it's also a museum, because that's where the ship was built.
The city purchased the facility from the federal government, then later sold it to the J. Lewis Reynolds Corporation, now known as Reynolds Park.
They came to the city in 1961 and said they was going to close it. They said it would take 1 to 3 years to close. By June of 1962, the base was completely closed, and the last thing they closed was the golf course. That was the last thing.
Green Cove Springs was also home to Gustafson Farm, owned and operated by Frank and Agnes Gustafson. Their family dairy operation began in 1908 within the city and earned recognition as Mama and Papa Gus. They started delivery of milk products to the local hotels supplied from one cow named Buttercup.
After we got the roads all cleaned up, then the Gustafsons, then when they started their dairies, that right back here, they also had the cows. Buttercup was their first cow. And so even though the VIA and the Gustafsons had a good relationship, along with the cows came the cow patties. And so they wanted that cleaned up too. So that was another project that we had. And then the Gustafsons moved their cows out to another location, but they still lived there and still had a good relationship.
During the 1960s and 1970s, Green Cove Springs earned the nickname Little Detroit because of the cluster of automobile dealerships along US 17. These dealerships were largely established by Justin Pierce Revels, who opened the first Ford dealership in the state of Florida. This automotive presence provided an economic identity for Green Cove Springs during that time.
Little Detroit was a moniker, if you will, that the car dealers got together in the 60s and basically banded together, and they decided they would call themselves Little Detroit and increase automobile sales here in Green Cove as opposed to going to Jacksonville and buying a car, St. Augustine, Palatka, or Lake City. And that effort was very successful up down through the 70s, if you will. And I want to say there was probably 6 or 8 car dealerships, all the majors, Ford, Buick, Cadillac, Chevrolet, Ford, and so forth. And they were known, if you wanted to buy an automobile at a reasonable price, come to Little Detroit. So once again, they did well. To back up a second, one of the first motor car dealerships in the state of Florida was just a block from here. Over the Gustafson house is over the next block. And there's a vacant lot there now, and that was Gustafson Motor Company. I can remember that.
While the city has grown and thrived over the years, its true heart lies in the memories of those who have lived and worked here.
Well, I grew up here in Green Cove Springs. My mother originated from Georgia. My dad lived here. My great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, and my great-great-grandmother are all from Green Cove Springs. I remember as a little girl walking the streets of Green Cove, and a lot of the streets was not paved. There was very few streets that were paved. I remember walking in the hot sand, like if though you were walking on the beach. I used to love to be barefooted, and I would walk in the sand, going to other relatives' home and friends' home. A lot of fun memories, a lot of fun.
My family's been here since the 50s, and so just going to school and living around here for all these years, I came back from college to start opening businesses in Green Cove, and we just grew to love the community and then the history, and the more families that we met here that have been here for generations, the more our passion grew for the area, and we just became so incredibly invested.
I came to Green Cove Springs to pursue my personal and professional life in education by coaching and teaching. Well, the Bible says in Psalms, it says that if you delight yourself in the Lord, He'll give you secret desires of your heart. So my secret desire was to play pro football. I wasn't supposed to go teach and coach. And I got hurt. So I wasn't going to take the operation. So I told him, I said, look, I'm through. I'm going home. So when I came home, I got this phone call from Green Cove Springs. And they said, we'd like for you to come down and interview for a teaching job. I was the first African American in a white school in the state of Florida. I was the first African American recreation director. And over the times, I had lots and lots. I taught generations of kids, the mama, the daddy, the grandmama, and everybody else. And I don't think I ever had somebody that didn't like you. And then when I first come here, kids didn't have a way home. And for them to play sports, I took them home. I took everybody home every day. So I'd like leave that school with 35 or 40 kids on the back of my truck. I wore out 3 trucks. Then, we went on to start coaching. Well, that year we didn't have a great football team. We had a lot of young kids, and it was like, 1 and 7. We lost 7. But then when we got ready to go play Lake Butler, we went on over there, and when I got to Lake Butler, they said, "Where's the coach?" I said, "I'm back here." He said, "Let the boys come on in." So the boys walked on in, and I got ready to walk in. He said, "I'm going to use another word." He said, "Where you going?" I said, I'm the coach." He said, "Boy, you must be crazy. They ain't got no black people coaching no white school in Florida." And so the parents heard him. And the boys are standing right there, and they got mad. So the parents said something to him, and then he said, "Well, ma'am, I hadn't heard of that." I said, "I'm sorry, mister." I said, "Okay," and I went on to the locker room. So I got to the locker room, the guys told me, say, "Look, you don't need to come in here. So we got something to talk about." I said, "Okay." So I just went on back outside and sat down. And when you saw those boys, when they come out, looked like they had fire in their eyes. And, if Lake Butler, they were 8-3. If they beat us, they were in the state playoffs. But when them boys come out, we beat them 33-0. We beat everybody else. And they had a custom here in Green Cove. If, we went off to play a game, because we were winning all the time, they would stay up, and when we come through Green Cove, everybody would blow the horn. And when you blowed the horn, you could see lights turning off all over Green Cove. So we were getting ready to go to state championship. We went down to Graceville. That's down near Alabama, but next door, really. And so the boys got out, and we got out there and warmed up, and the boys was out there talking, and they was, they was giving us a hard time. See, y'all, I know y'all sorry because y'all ain't got about 4 or 5 students and people in the stands. And so I told the boys, I said, "Y'all just keep practicing, don't worry about them." So the game starts at 8 o'clock. About 10 minutes before the game started, they had a gate down there, it started rumbling. And when that gate come on, there were 11 bus loads from Green Cove. And I don't know how many people drove. But when the game started, we had people lined up from the front of the sideline all the way down to the end. And we beat them 33-0. It was a great thing, everybody was together, and we didn't have no fights, we didn't have no problems. The school went fine, and everywhere else they were having problems. In Jacksonville, they were beating people up with axe hammers and all kind of stuff. You couldn't do nothing. But we didn't have that kind of stuff in Green Cove. And like I said, God always had prepared this. Everything I touched was like touching gold.
Today, Green Cove Springs is a harmonious blend of the past and present. Historic landmarks stand proudly alongside modern amenities, reflecting our rich heritage and progressive spirit. In April of 2004, the city relocated its operations adjacent to the municipal swimming pool and moved into a new 2-story stucco structure situated on the site of the former Clarendon and the Kisisana hotels. The present-day City Hall complex emulates the Mediterranean architectural style of the former Kisisana Hotel to preserve a historical link to the community's past heritage and history. Our community thrives on unity, innovation, and the spirit of togetherness. From farmers markets to festivals, Green Cove Springs is a place where tradition and modern coexist beautifully.
Whenever developers come and they want to be in Green Cove Springs and you see new businesses pop up, they pop up in areas where it makes sense, where it enhances the walkability, it enhances the quality of life, it showcases our culture and history. These have been some of the one would say boring and tedious groundwork that we have been laying that now we're starting to see these pieces go into place. That's going to create this wonderful puzzle that is going to be the vision of Green Cove Springs going forward. We have these grand events, whether it's the River Fest or our Memorial Day presentation, our Veterans tributes that we do, our whether it's the Food Truck Fridays. They have a really great polish and they're grand and they can attract 8,000 people, but it still just feels like you're just around neighbors and friends. We have the Calavita, which is a great event that is ran by more local volunteers, and that highlights art from all over and brings it down here to our beautiful park and makes it interactive, and so that these people can put their work on display, and then we can also teach youngsters and all of our other community members all of these different creative acts. We also, one of the first projects of our newly established CRA, that thanks to our partnership with the county, we just got that established this year so that we can invest in our city's core. One of the first projects they're undertaking is public art exhibits or displays in some of our public spaces. And some of them are going to highlight history, some of them are going to highlight local art and beauty of Green Cove Springs, the natural beauty. And it's another one of those things it sets the tone. So it being the first project the CRA is going to tackle shows exactly where art and culture stands as far as importance for Green Cove Springs.
With the different activities and events that brings the community together. So as you know, we have the Soul Food Festival that's in October. We have, who can't forget about the Food Truck Friday that we have once a month. We have our police department that puts on events. We have the Friends of Augusta Savage that puts on events. And our park is filled with a lot of events now since it's been renovated. We have people come from near and far just to be in the city of Green Cove Springs. Dynamics of Green Cove Springs have kind of shifted and changed some. And I believe it's a setup for a great, great city in the future.
The future of Green Cove Springs is bright. With plans for sustainable development, enhanced infrastructure, and community-driven projects, we are poised for continued growth and success.
One of the first decisions we made when I came on council was huge infrastructure investments like we've never done. And that was shocking as a new council member coming in before I'd really learned anything. So these are the steps that are taken that are kind of the not so exciting steps, but so necessary to set us up so that we're really headed in the right direction, making sure that we enhance and protect the things that all of our residents hold dear, which is like our natural beauty, our natural resources, which all of our infrastructure and our utilities, they all have that in mind. They know we have a responsibility to protect our waterways, to protect our residents, to keep our trees, our tree canopies beautiful and healthy, to maintain that cultural feel that we have. That is going to be the balance going forward. I think we've really laid down the groundwork, whether it's through our ordinances and form-based codes and laying out the city in an intentional way.
Even in the next 50 years, and I know that my grandchildren and family will be able to, see the results of what we are doing today. And that'll be something special for them. So right now, we are celebrating history, but I'm making history.
One of my favorite phrases is honoring our heritage and forging our future. Part of that process is knowing what has occurred in the past and then trying to build off of that in a way that makes the community better. As we've gone through the history of Green Cove Springs, we've had several eras that we have gone through since the 1874 incorporation. We've had the tourism draw, the military era, we had the Little Detroit era, and now we're having the heavy growth era. That growth is coming and we can't do a whole lot about it other than manage it. And managing it involves a lot of different areas of city operation, which include the planning and zoning, the land use, making sure we have sufficient people in departments such as public safety, public works, to make sure that the quality of life that existed back 150 years ago continues to exist today, as well as we move forward into the future, into our next 150 years.
From our storied past to our promising future, Green Cove Springs stands as a testament to resilience, community, and vision.
I think the pride that I have in the city now is not only the mayor and council, but our team, which I think I would put up against any team that we would be compared to, and I think the members of that team will do their part to move us into the next 150 years.
We want to be the place that people can work and play.
And there's just something about living here, whether it's going to the Food Truck Fridays or just going up to the grocery store or walking down the street. There's a familiarity and a neighborliness that I just did not experience until I came back and we put down roots here in Green Cove, and there's definitely something that sets us apart.
Join us in celebrating 150 years and writing the next chapter of our city's remarkable history.
Happy anniversary, Green Cove Springs! Happy anniversary, 150th Green Cove Springs!
Happy anniversary, Green Cove Springs!
Happy anniversary, Green Cove Springs!
Woo!
Happy 150th anniversary, Green Cove Springs. I love living here.
Happy 150th Green Cove Springs.
Happy 150-year anniversary, Green Cove Springs. Thank you for being the best part of our Cove life.
Happy anniversary, Green Cove Springs. Happy 150th